All right, let's jump right into this explainer. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the demands of our modern world, trust me, you are absolutely not alone. Today, we're doing something really special. We're decoding the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita to see how the legendary Axe of Detachment directly relates to modern scientific energy and quantum physics. We are translating this ancient wisdom into an easy-to-understand guide to philosophy. So, if you're looking for the art of living peacefully, clarity in your actions, and a reliable way to excel in a life that's often full of doubts and struggles, you are in the exact right place.
So the absolute crucial starting point for us is this fundamental question: why does our own mind fight us when all we really want is peace? I mean, why does everyday life feel so completely exhausting for so many of us? We are desperately seeking harmony, yet our minds seem literally hardwired to create stress, doubts, and struggles. To understand how to actually achieve that peaceful living, we have to start by diagnosing our own biological baseline.
Section 1. The Modern Human Struggle.
Okay, so here's the deal. We all carry some deep evolutionary baggage that is, quite frankly, fundamentally failing us today. For thousands of years, our bodies evolved to deal with intense physical threats, literally escaping a tiger. Our biology responds to this by activating our sympathetic nervous system. But contrast that with our lives right now. Our threats are almost never physical anymore. They're complex emails, demanding relationships, and high-pressure intellectual challenges. We are basically applying a biological response designed for jungle survival to a stressful morning inbox.
And what's truly fascinating about this is that this vestigial biological response, that classic fight, flight, or freeze mechanism, is exactly what creates the core problem in our spiritual and mental lives. Because, you see, our biology doesn't actually know the difference between a hungry predator and a tight deadline. It just pumps us full of stress hormones either way. This evolutionary baggage makes our non-physical problems so much worse, leading to chronic things like diabetes and just intense mental fatigue. Emotions like anger and extreme competition were super useful in the animal stage for sure, but today, they just tie us down.
Moving on to Section 2. The Upside-Down Tree.
To really diagnose and ultimately cure this modern stress, we've got to look at this incredibly vivid metaphor from the Kathopanishad and the 15th chapter of the Gita. The text describes the entire universe, our whole reality, as an Ashwattha, or pipal tree. But here's the catch. It's entirely upside down. The main root is up above, representing the ultimate source, or Brahman, and the branches grow downward into the material world, manifesting into all the objects, people, and situations we interact with every single day.
This upside-down tree represents samsara, the material world. And honestly, this is where it gets incredibly relatable for all of us. Because from those downward branches, secondary roots emerge and just tangle everything up. These secondary roots, they represent our worldly desires, our attachments, and our deep ignorance. Our lives essentially become this sticky, tangled web of worldly dependence. We become completely dependent on our jobs, our social status, the stuff we own. The roots just totally cover the main trunk, making everything messy and confusing.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Axe of Detachment.
So, the big question is, how do we clear this mess out and finally find some clarity? Well, we have to hack through those secondary roots, and we do it using vairagya. This is your ultimate tool. It's known as the Axe of Detachment. Now, a really important distinction we need to make right now. Detachment isn't about losing anything. It's not about running away to live in a cave. It is the weapon of Asanga that frees us from the rigid, suffocating expectations we place on people, objects, and situations. It's mental renunciation. It's holding on to an identity that isn't completely 100% reliant on your job title or your bank account.
When you actually put this into practice, the journey from world dependence to true independence is surprisingly logical. We all start out dependent on the world for our security and our pleasure. But by practicing things like karma yoga, which is focusing on service and doing your duties without obsessing over the outcome, and dhyana yoga, which is meditation, we actively overcome that evolutionary baggage. We basically stop seeking all our security and pleasure from outside of ourselves, and we arrive at complete independence and true equanimity.
So, let's break this down. What is this axe actually made of? The anatomy here is super interesting. First, you have viveka, which is your sharp, pure intellect. That's the part of you actually wielding the axe. Then there's mumukshutva, your burning desire for freedom. That provides the firm, muscular grip and all the raw power behind your swing. Asanga is the detachment itself, the sharp blade doing the cutting. And finally, karma yoga is the actual motion of swinging the axe. It's doing your duties, contributing more to the world than you consume, and doing it all without getting attached to the fruits of your actions.
Now for Section 4, where science meets spirituality.
Okay, this is where things get absolutely mind-blowing. We are seeing ancient wisdom being surprisingly validated by modern scientific labs. The Gita describes Prakriti, the material world, as a place where everything emerges from and returns to one fundamental source in these endless cycles. Mirroring this perfectly, and I mean perfectly, we have Einstein's E=mc² and quantum field theory. Modern science tells us that energy and matter are completely interchangeable. There is literally no fundamental solid stuff out there. Particles are really just excitations of underlying energy fields. So this ancient concept of shifting forms, it perfectly mirrors our modern understanding of quantum physics.
And think about how both of these disciplines view connection. The Gita states that the divine pervades all things, literally seated in the hearts of all creatures. It's a profound vision of deep, underlying unity. While modern physics arrives at a strikingly similar conclusion through quantum entanglement, also known as non-locality. Particles can be instantly connected across vast distances, where measuring one instantly affects the other. No way around it. Both perspectives totally shatter our basic human intuition that we are separate, isolated objects. They prove that those messy roots of the upside-down tree are, at a quantum level, deeply interconnected.
And researchers are actively exploring this frontier right now. The journey to understand this source involves moving from our standard brain-bound cortical consciousness, the everyday mind that stresses over emails, through what physicists call the zero-point energy, toward ground consciousness, or consciousness as such. Science and spirituality are converging right here, pointing us away from mere biological brain activity and toward a much more profound universal essence.
Section 5. The Art of Equanimity.
Let's bring this all back down to earth and translate these massive cosmological and scientific insights into actionable lifestyle steps. How do you actually know if you are making progress? How do you know if you've successfully swung the axe of detachment? Well, the absolute measuring stick is equanimity in all situations. True independence from the world means you are no longer violently tossed around by the ups and downs of everyday life. If you rely entirely on the world for your security, every little failure is going to crush you. But if you are independent, you maintain a steady, clear mind no matter what happens around you.
So what are the tools to build this independence? First, Karma Yoga breaks your dependence on the world for security by keeping your focus on service rather than the reward. Second, Dhyana Yoga, or meditation, breaks your dependence on the world for pleasure. And this brilliantly ties back into the science we just talked about. By practicing meditation, you literally generate your own dopamine right in your brain. You secure pleasure independently, without needing any external validation, a shiny new purchase, or a social media like. Combine that with compassion, and you step entirely out of the limits of your own ego.
If you're ready to put this into practice tomorrow morning, here is your precise, step-by-step roadmap for Dhyana Yoga. First is Shravana. You learn and listen to the concepts. Next is Manana. You reflect on it all until you have a rock-solid, doubt-free understanding. Third, Nididhyasana. You deeply meditate on this meaning. Fourth is Tyaga, or Vairagya. You actively practice mental renunciation and finally let go of those rigid expectations. And step 5 is Shanti, the profound peace that just naturally arises from that detachment. If you follow this sequence, finding clarity becomes completely inevitable.
But to truly make this work, we have to address one major, fundamental misconception. The text tells us point blank, pleasure is not the goal of life. Wisdom is the goal of life. When we correct our baseline assumption that we are simply here to be endlessly entertained and constantly comfortable, our entire worldview completely shifts. We realize the world isn't broken at all. It's actually perfectly designed to give us the exact ups and downs we need to develop detachment and seek real wisdom.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to take with you. Think about your own upside-down tree right now. What secondary roots are tying you down and causing you so much exhaustion? Is it an obsession with a specific job title? A reliance on someone else's approval? Grab that axe of detachment, informed by ancient wisdom and backed by the very energetic structure of our universe, and take your first swing toward true, lasting equanimity. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.